Uh-oh.
You know, it's interesting that we're having you on this program, Sky, because just a couple of weeks ago, Ade, true to form, was trying to stir the pot with Nikisa Badarian of Most Valuable Promotions, asking about a potential fight between you and Ellie Scottney. In case you missed the clip, do you mind if I played for you real quick and then have you respond?
Sure. Wait. What about what I mind?
No, that doesn't matter. Here it is. Here's Nikisa a couple weeks ago. I got a text from Sky Nicholson who said, "Tell her I want her next. Let's make this fight." I didn't get to ask her that question. Sky Nicholson, who's under the match.
What weight does she fight at?
Well, she's now moved down. She's now, I believe, 122.
Is 124.2 a weight class? If you're a fighter who wants to compete at 122 pounds, number one, demonstrate that you can make 122 pounds. Don't put your head up high and say, I got a knockout against a fighter when you totally disregarded the weight. Embarrassing. Number two, show that you can actually sell some tickets, headline a card, show some viewership, do something. Social media is awesome. It's great. You do well on social media. Love it.
Oh, thank you.
But Ellie Scottney's the champ. She calls the shots.
Okay, look, our production team actually cut out all the Ade part. They protected you there, Ade. They protected you and made me look like the bad guy. You see that? Anyhow, most importantly, what is your response to what Nikisa had to say?
The fight was agreed at 124. It wasn't a title fight. It happens very often. You box a pound or two above championship weight when it's not a championship fight. I actually weighed in at 123.9, I think. So I don't know where he got 124.2 from. But I did make weight comfortably. And I will prove that I can make the weight in this next one. This fight is agreed at 122, so I'm very excited for that. I love the Ellie fight. I know she's going for undisputed right now, so I don't blame her for that being her main focus, but I'm always going to be open to that fight and chasing that fight. I'm going to be chasing the champions and the belt holders at 122 and 126.
I did not get the impression that Nikisa Badarian, who now handles the career of unified super bantamweight champion Ellie Scottney, was at all receptive to a Sky Nicholson showdown, a Sky Nicholson fight. And he asserted that in that situation, if it were to go down, Ellie calls the shots, and nobody's saying that she doesn't. She's the champ. But you saw how he reacted. You just got the impression that he doesn't feel that Sky deserves the fight, or maybe he doesn't see the point in it. Though I do. Even though Sky Nicholson doesn't have a belt to offer Ellie Scottney, she does have a name that is more familiar to the boxing community at large than the name of Yemi Mercado, than the name of the girl she's about to fight, Mayeli Flores. More boxing fans are familiar with Sky than they are those fighters, and name value in and of itself can go a long way. Sky is en route to her second consecutive fight after rebounding off the loss to Tiara Brown at 126 at feather. Now she's campaigning at super bantam. Simultaneously, Ellie Scottney may see herself crowned undisputed champion before this year is out, placing a potential fight between them sometime next year, if they decide to do it. They might not. They don't really have to. Ellie Scottney doesn't have to give Sky Nicholson the time of day, but the virtue in it is that people do know Sky. I'm not telling you that Sky Nicholson sells out the garden. Sky's this huge draw, but she is more well-known than anyone Ellie Scottney has fought so far, and that is the formula. That's what's been working. What helped women's boxing along, that the fights between the somebodies in women's boxing happen a lot quicker than the fights with the somebodies in men's boxing, and you can't really get away from that formula because that's the appeal. That's what's helped it grow the last 7 or 8 years. It's not just pursuing belts and unifying titles. Katie Taylor made time to fight Natasha Jonas, who didn't have a belt at the time. She made time to fight Jessica McCaskill. She wasn't a champion either, not when they fought. So sometimes the somebody's got a belt, and sometimes the somebodies don't. This is one of those rare instances where a somebody at 122 ain't got a title. Michaela Mayer didn't have a belt when Sandy Ryan decided to give her a shot, but it made for one of the better fights in women's boxing we've seen in the last 12 months. Both of their fights, the first one and the second. So even if Sky doesn't have a belt to bring to an Ellie Scottney fight, there is still some value there. There is still something to be gained. More notoriety. If it were to go down, it would have to go down on the MVP side of things, on MVP's dime. As Nikisa Badarian stated, Ellie Scottney would call the shots. Sky would have to cross the street. I don't think Matchroom would try to stop her. We'll see if they make it. Men's junior welterweight news. In an interview on Mill City, Prograis suggested that a fight between him and Subriel Matias could materialize. Matias suits me the best, said Prograis, about which champion at junior welter would work best with his style. And he's only half right. There was a time where I would have given Regis Prograis a good chance of winning that fight. A fighting chance because he does have the right style for the job. He's a boxer puncher. At his very best, he's a counter puncher. He works best when he doesn't have to chase the guy, when the guy chases him. But we just saw this past weekend former champion Jojo Diaz give chase to Regis Prograis, and he gave him some problems. More problems than he should have. Than he should have been able to. But both of those fighters have their fair share of losses. And Jojo Diaz is a fighter who's fought as low as 122 or 126. He was never that big on power, Jojo. So for him to be hurting Regis Prograis, for him to buckle him with a counter hooks. I saw him hurt Regis Prograis several times, mid-range to inside, when he was letting go of combinations. That's not a good sign. Jojo is not a heavy-handed guy. What that communicates to me is that Regis has been making 140 pounds for far too long, and now his body is suffering for it. His power is waning, weakening, and his punch resistance is gone. So even if he has the right base style for the job, the right kinds of strategies, physically, he may not be able to execute them. Not at 140 pounds, and not at age 36. To where, if Subriel Matias starts letting go of combinations, how Jojo did, Subriel is a full 140, with more power than Jojo. With Jojo, Regis was able to endure, but if Subriel gets in with punches, how Jojo got in with punches, yeah, it could be trouble. And I think that because Subriel is a bigger guy, it's gonna be harder to get away from him. So Regis is only half right. That stylistically, Subriel presents a style that he normally does well with, but at this stage in his career, saw Regis Prograis in that fight, circling away, sticking the jab out there, and he was having success with that for the most part, but periodically, Jojo got past the jab, got inside, let go of combinations. You can't afford for that to happen with Subriel Matias, but it's going to. Jojo is a comparatively much shorter guy than Subriel Matias, with shorter arms than Subriel Matias. Subriel has better ring coverage. Not the best footwork, not the best defense, but he does have ring coverage because he's a taller, longer guy than Jojo Diaz. So if Jojo was able to get to you, Subriel will be able to get to you and do more damage. Perhaps it's a blessing in disguise that Subriel is otherwise preoccupied right now, and he's got to fight either as mandatory Dalton Smith or run it back with Alberto Puello, that at least right now, he's not available for a Regis Prograis fight. But what immediately comes to mind is that old saying, careful what you wish for, Regis, because you just might get it. Men's junior middleweight news, reigning IBF champion Bakram Murtazaliev took to his social media and said, "Bro, Erickson Lubin, nobody wants to organize our fight?" You being sarcastic? I don't think so. I addressed this problem in my previous video, that Erickson Lubin and Bakram Murtazaliev normally fight on the PBC side of things, but the PBC don't have any shows throughout the month of August into the month of September. So where is the window of opportunity to do this fight, assuming the PBC is even involved. Because Ericsson's last fight wasn't on the PBC, it was on ProBox. And technically, neither was Bakram Murtazaliev's last fight. The one last year with Tim Tszyu, where he upset him, that wasn't really a PBC show, and that's why you didn't see any PBC fighters on the undercard. That was actually a No Limit Promotions show in association with the PBC. Via their association with Amazon Prime, we got to see it here in the United States, but for all accounts, the PBC didn't bankroll that one, and I don't know that they can bankroll this one. Other nuances in association with this is that Erickson Lubin is his mandatory challenger. In Erickson's last fight with Andriel Holmes, he fought in an IBF eliminator. So Bakram has to fight this guy, but what does the IBF do if nobody decides to pick up this fight? It's not Bakram's fault if the money ain't there.
Can't ProBox pick it up? They picked up Lubin's last fight.
Yeah, but Lubin's last fight was with a nobody. It's with some guy. I don't think the Ardriel Holmes fight costed as much as this would because Bakram is a champion. So you see what the problem is? The PBC may not have the resources to put this on. ProBox may be hesitant to put it on because it's more expensive than the kind of fights they usually do.
You know what I wouldn't mind? I wouldn't mind if Turkey added this fight to the November show.
Might sound like a broken record. Expecting Turkey LL Sheikh to right all of boxing's wrongs and help everybody out, but he's the only guy with a war chest big enough that making this fight, it's nothing to him. It's a drop in the bucket. Put it on the prelim. Or what about MVP? MVP is not above borrowing fighters that are with different promotional outfits. Jake Paul's last fight, they borrowed both Zurdo Ramirez and Floyd Schofield, I believe it was, and they're with Golden Boy. They borrowed those guys.
They could borrow these too.
We're coming up on a year since Bakram Murtazaliev's big win over Tim Tszyu, and he's lost a lot of momentum. We haven't seen him since then, and if we're lucky, we may only see him once before this year is out.
And then he's gonna observe Ramadan early next year.
It's nobody's first choice, Bakram Murtazaliev. He's not a guy that a whole lot of junior middles are in a hurry to fight, save Erickson Lubin. That's the only guy I see that wants to fight him. But see what the problem is.
Who's supposed to pay for it?
Bakram is with main events. That's Kathy Duva, that's Aegis Klimas, but they're more like booking agents than promoters. They don't have a broadcast deal with anybody to do shows of their own. What they really do is rent their fighters out to other promoters that do have broadcast deals.
A lot of good that's doing, Bakram.
And super middleweight news, Dmitry Bivol recently stated, in reference to the upcoming Canelo versus Crawford fight, he being Terence Crawford, he needs to be confident he can go into the ring and take Canelo's punches. Undisputed light heavyweight champion Dmitry Bivol has shared his thoughts on Terence Crawford's bold jump to 168 to challenge Canelo Alvarez this upcoming September. Bivol says Crawford's elite mindset and sparring won't matter if he can't physically withstand Canelo's power, and questions whether or not Bud is biting off more than he can chew without a tune-up fight at super middle. Is Crawford being fast-tracked too recklessly, or will his skill set and IQ be enough to shock the world?
Now, I've addressed a lot of these talking points already, but in separate videos. For this segment, we can address them all at once. Dmitry Bivol isn't some guy on the outside looking in. He's sampled Canelo Alvarez's power firsthand. I even remember him saying that Canelo punches harder than David Benavidez. Even though Canelo is noticeably older and smaller than David Benavidez, the bottom line is Canelo hits hard. He hits harder than anybody Terence Crawford has fought so far. And I don't want to hear about the sparring stories, that he sparred Carlos Adames or he sparred this guy or that guy.
And Canelo Alvarez sparred Frankie Sanchez, a goddamn heavyweight. At the end of the day, I don't think the outcome of the fight is going to come down to gym stories.
It's a factor.
Power is a factor. Physicality is a factor. I think people in the previous era of boxing, the Mayweather era, they forgot about that, focusing on flash and pizzazz, style and defense, forgetting that Floyd's most difficult fights, some of the most difficult fights that Floyd had, they weren't against finesse fighters. They were against physical guys, rough and tumble guys, like Castillo, like Miguel Cotto.
They made it physical. That made it difficult.
So that when Dimitri Bivol says that Crawford's elite mindset and sparring won't matter if he can't physically withstand Canelo's power, he's right.
It's a factor.
The best way for Canelo Alvarez to approach this fight with Terence Crawford is to show him what it feels like to fight at 168. Don't look to do him with a single shot, or 2 shots. Don't load up on your punches. Let your hands go.
Shoot from the hip. Don't load him up and don't lose that half a second trying to generate power.
Touch him with the pity-pat punches, the throwaway jabs, and mix in the power shots in between so he doesn't really know when they're coming.
You go out there looking for a single shot to do the guy, Terence is going to know it, and he's going to look for that shot. He's going to stay away from it. He's going to weave under it. He's going to step out. He's going to move around. If you look to do him with a single shot, but 2 punches, 3, 4, 5 punches, that's harder to get away from. That is harder to avoid.
Canelo's been on cruise control in a lot of these fights that he's been having. The Munguia fight, the Berlanga fight, the William Skull fight.
Autopilot.
Confident that he would win. You could tell he wasn't trying his hardest in those fights. Maybe it's because he felt he didn't have to.
Maybe he didn't, but this time he does. You can't give Terence Crawford an inch in this thing. If you go out there fencing and fiddling with him and boxing with him, looking for opportunities,
So you're gonna end up doing? You're gonna end up keeping him in the fight instead of taking him out. Instead of taking him out of it and taking it out of the judge's hands, if you fence and fiddle with him, that's what he wants.
gonna keep him in the fight.
I don't think Terence Crawford can afford to get into a gunfight with Canelo Alvarez. You see, that's what Terence doesn't need, but that's what Canelo should pursue.
Gunfight.
Terence Crawford is an excellent boxer, one of my favorite boxers of the last 10 years. But I'd be lying to you if I told you that his defenses were impregnable. No, they're not. We saw that last year in August when he fought Israel Madrimov at 154. How many times did Israel land the right hand on Terence Crawford? He can be hit. And if Israel can touch you with a right, Canelo can touch you with a right.
Especially if he comes out boxing southpaw like he usually does. Southpaws are more susceptible to the right hand than orthodox fighters. Terence Crawford has a tendency to come out boxing southpaw in the early goings of a fight.
The answers to the outcome of this fight, they're not quite clear, because these are 2 of the best guys. That's what makes it a great fight. There's a way for Terence Crawford to win, but it's not easy. And there's a way for Canelo to win.
I don't know how easy that is either. The point that Dimitri Bivol raised about physicality, that's a valid point that often gets overlooked.
Can you afford to get hit by this guy? Can you endure? Can you withstand his power? Because there is no argument that Canelo will be the very best fighter Terence Crawford has ever fought and the biggest puncher that Terence Crawford has ever fought. I don't think he's ever fought a puncher like this. Errol Spence! Let me stop you right there. This is a far cry from Errol Spence. Yeah, Errol Spence is all right. He's okay.
But he ain't Canelo.
A lot of you guys need to understand that. More than you guys. Terence Crawford needs to understand that. I hope he does.
There's no debate that Canelo will be the best guy that he ever fought. One of the best fighters in the sport right now.
And what looks like an uphill battle for Terence.